Hello, everybody. Welcome to this exciting session. I trust you all had a good morning there, but if you're listening to the recording here, get comfortable, get excited, have a notebook ready to find out where you're going to get this amazing book from that we're going to find out about. And it's a new way, another way to learn by these amazing, we've got a number of the authors here, and I'm very excited to hear all about it. I'm Heidi Conway from Australia, been involved with the Learn Free conferences for the last couple of years, and excited to get to know all of you in the UK and other authors and participants if you're here as a viewer from around the world, the beauty of a virtual conference. So I'll hand over to Molly Ashton to begin the presentation on the book, about the compilation book, Another Way to Learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. That was just a lovely, lovely introduction. So we are very, very excited here. This is a new book called Another Way to Learn with a question mark at the end to make it all more interesting. Discovering the joy of the beauty of home education. And it's I think, well, I've called it a bread and butter guide. I think we've termed it an essential guide. But it's been a project in the making for really quite a few years, and my heart bubbling away. But we've actually only started writing about a year ago, I believe. So what we'd like to do in this session is to introduce ourselves. There are actually 11 chapters all in all, so we haven't got all 11 contributors here. One of the chapters has 3 different contributors anyway, so we haven't got all of us. I think there may be 16 of us altogether. We have and then Philippa is going to. Philippa and I've been working on the marketing strategy and the launch, the pre-launch, and Philippa's developed, and she and her husband have developed an amazing website, which I think is already linked here. So you must go and have a look at that. So she'll then kind of conclude with looking at that and kind of where we can go with it, and how you can all be a part of the launch team, because we want to spread this kind of far and wide, because we really do believe that it will be a helpful and an encouragement to many people, so we want to spread it. So if I just begin without saying too much about the book, we have 11 chapters. I said we have a foreword by Steve Bigu, who is head of education at Christian Concern in the UK, and he's written us a lovely foreword, which is great. We have a afterword or postscript by Randall Mary Hardy, who you may well know and have heard speak here, which is putting the whole thing of home education in context where we are politically, which I just feel is really important. I think we could write all sorts of lovely home ed books, but actually we need to know where we are politically and why this is so important. So it changes all the time, but they have written as up to date as they possibly can a conclusion. An afterword. I've written the introduction and the conclusion. The background, kind of where the book came from, was it actually started as often things do. They often start in a hard place, don't they? Often seeds are sown in a hard place, and it was actually during quite a hard place in our home educating, where we were under quite a lot of having quite a lot of questioning about our choices to home educate through the teen years. We have been home educating right from the start, but from when they were quite young. But the teen years and GCSEs is another thing, isn't it? And also we had just fairly recently adopted our 4th child, who needed to be in hospital. So I was unexpectedly in hospital with her for a while, and I had in kind of slightly in desperation, because I was like, oh gosh, we need some help. I need to know it's going to be okay if we keep going. I'd contacted Chess, and it wasn't Ruth then, I think it was your predecessor, sent me a book which had been written by Lynn and Steve Richards, who have actually endorsed this book. And it was a wonderful collaboration of UK home educators, and it was just their stories. And that gave me such encouragement just to hear these different stories from around the UK. It was really lovely. And that put in it was already a little bit outdated when I read it. But it was just really encouraging, and that put in my heart, wouldn't it be great to do something along these lines with a collaboration of UK home educators, but with with different topics, and so people could, like a manual, so people could work through the different topics. And I certainly have really appreciated, I don't know if you've got anyone from the States here today, but I've really appreciated all the information and the books and the blogs and the podcasts and everything that's come from the States. I've been very, really appreciated those, and they've been a huge encouragement to me. So, but I thought home ed, I think, has come of age in the UK now. We have, in fact, Philippa is a second generation home educator. We have many of our children are now post home ed. They're at working, university, post, whatever, doing even beyond that. And we have second generation home educators as well. So I think we have a wealth of resources and a wealth of wisdom amongst UK home educators. And I just thought it would be lovely to be able to incorporate some of that that wisdom and experience, as well as excitement too, because some of them are slightly younger with a fresh vision, into a book. So anyway, about a year ago, just over a year ago, I think I spoke to Steve first of all and just asked whether he would be willing to endorse a book. So I thought, well, it's quite a big ask to ask people to write a chapter for a book I haven't actually got a publisher for. And he said that he would, and he would also do what he could to try and help us get it published. So that was such a huge encouragement. So after that, I contacted all these lovely people, and amazingly, they were so positive and said, yes, they'd write chapters, and we jiggled a little bit about who was going to write what. But it's just been lovely, and we've had a WhatsApp group, and so we've been able to bat ideas to and fro, things about what we were going to call the book, cover design, all sorts of things. So it's been really, really exciting. It's just been a wonderful collaboration. I would say from my perspective, I think friendships have been made. Friendships have been deepened, and friendships have been made as well. So it's been great. So the book is going to be coming out in September. We did find a publisher, not the first one, but we did. I think we submitted it to 3 or 4 publishers, can't remember now. But anyway, we have found a fantastic publisher, and they've been more than helpful and very, very willing to work with so many of us. So that's been fantastic. And I think now it's time for me to hand over and to ask some of the contributors here just to say a little bit about who they are and why they wrote their chapter. So Charles and Ruth, can we ask you first?
Are we on? Yeah. So, are you going to start?
Yeah, okay. So, some of you will know me. I've been around the conference, and some of you will know me perhaps from chess. I've got to know Mary quite a little bit over the last kind of 2 or 3 years particularly. And when Mary floated the idea of this book, obviously we were really kind of excited. Is it possible to just change the spotlight, Heidi? Can you do that so that we've got us highlighted here?
Yeah, I thought I had highlighted you. You've got spotlight on. You might have gallery on. The spotlight's on you.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah, so when Mary kind of floated the idea of this book, we were quite excited about it because obviously we could see the need. People are always kind of looking for just information. It's just really good to get together and to hear each other's stories. And obviously when you've had quite a lot of experience, I can't quite believe that it's over 20 years that we've been at the home ed game. But you do actually pick up some tips and some things that you can actually help others with. So we were tasked with writing a chapter about dads, weren't we? Which is why Charles sat here. So do you want to just kind of say something about the approach of the chapter?
Yeah. So really, it's just the background of our chapter is just the story of what we've done over the last 20 years, and very much it's been a learning experience, but all the time I've been involved, and I suppose initially my role very much is to encourage and support Ruth, who was spending most of the time with the children, helping her to add some structure to the day, and helping her when things were difficult. As we've just been hearing, we all go through those times where it's a bit of a struggle, and so just being there And then as the children got older, I've taken more hands-on approach to actually teaching them. So the chapter goes through all the different ways that dads can and should take ownership of home education of their children, be involved, and rise up. It's very much a call, I would say, for dads to not just say, this is about mum doing it, or, you know, this isn't, I'm not around, I'm at work, but it's very much a call for dads to rise up and take ownership as the head of the family, to, as we see it, to lead, really, even if they're most of the time not there, to really lead the family and take ownership of what the children are learning, their character development, and so on. So it includes a bit of vision and some real challenges for dads.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that in writing this, it's actually made me realise the role that Charles actually played in those years, because it's very easy when you're the one that's at the coalface, if you like, to kind of just feel that it's overwhelming, and you know, you do need support in different ways. And I think the way, just to pick on the mining ideology, the mining kind of thing, it's like, you know, if you're the one that's doing the mining, what Charles provided for me was like the struts and the supports, so that the tunnels didn't collapse and actually crush me. And, you know, the lift that sends you down in the morning and that brings you up at the end of the day. You know, it's just, you cannot just do it on your own, because it would just all collapse in and crush you very easily. And just, you know, when Charles came home at the end of the night, just to say, I mean, the first thing it was that you had about half an hour to listen from me about all the things that happened, and all the things that had gone wrong, and all the difficulties with the, you know, with personalities, and all the issues just got hurled at you, really, didn't they, when you came in? But that was just really important for me, because that's just part of processing, and that is the partnership, how it works. You know, you took all that, and then you was able to kind of then feed in the perspective of, you know, just taking a step back and saying, well, you know, what about this? And, you know, and very often I would say, well, you know, it must be easier putting them in school because you think that's an easier option. Well, you know that it isn't in a rational moment, but you're just able to say, you know, it wouldn't be any easier. In fact, there would be even more issues. And just to keep, you know, the perspective of, and to say what we've achieved as well. Because again, when you're in it, it's very easy to not see the progress that you're making. And so just to have kind of Charles a little step removed, but then feeding in and encouraging and kind of, and helping to deal with issues. Obviously, if there was an issue with a personality and there was, you know, some discipline needed, some talking to that child, you know, that was the point at which you kind of took it on, didn't you, and kind of got even more involved. But so it's just our story, and it just made me realise how important and how valuable that role was, and how possibly without it, I mean, my hat's off to you know, all you single mums, perhaps even single dads that are doing that. Because, you know, for us, it was very much a partnership. And I mean, we did have 7 children. I don't know if we've said that, but so it was very busy. It was very intense because they were quite close together. So it was very much, you were very much hands-on and just supporting the everyday things that we did. So that's our chapter.
Yeah, I think that's another nice show. No, I think that's good.
So with that, shall we hand on to, who should we hand on to? What about Sean? Would you like to explain about your chapter, Sean?
Just a moment, Sean. I've just got a question there. Charles, are you the only dad in the book? Are you the only voice of a dad in the book?
One that's written, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Matt Harris has written a bit. There's one chapter which talks just about different ways that people have worked home education. And Matt Harris has written a book because he home educates and his wife is a breadwinner. So that's the way that they work it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love how that support for Charles and Ruth was. Look forward to reading the book already, and I've only heard from 2 of you. So who was next?
It's Sean.
That's me.
Very good.
Hi, yes, so I'm Sian, a good friend of Molly's. Well, I consider myself a good friend of Molly's. I'm hoping she considers me the same, who knows. So yes, we have 3 daughters, and we've been home educating now for nearly 4 years. So our children started off in school. So Molly approached me about writing a chapter that talked about our experience and our journey from school education to home education. So I entitled that chapter, but where will the whiteboard go? Which was one of the questions that was asked a few times to us, which I didn't have an answer for at the time. I'm not sure that I still do. So I'm all about emotions. And so in writing this chapter, it was really cathartic, actually, to go back and revisit those first terrifying thoughts of home education and trying to bat them away quite fiercely and desperately wanting school to work for our children. So really it is very much a chronological journey from those first niggles, those first thoughts, the confusion surrounding them, the emotions surrounding them, and then really through a real journey of faith and stepping out. So yes, it covers those niggles. The conversations with fellow school mums, really good friends, this school community that though school was very imperfect for our children, we cherished this school community. How we eventually made the decision. It was to start off with, it was just with our eldest daughter to start off with. And that was very much a dyslexia-driven need, decision-making. Approaching school, how we approached school, who we already had a very good relationship with, talking that through with school, the whole journey of leaving school, and our thoughts on leaving well, how we tried really hard to leave well. And then the emotions of saying goodbye to our daughter's year group. And then really that time with those first few weeks and months of home ed and feeling really quite at sea and not really knowing what we were doing. Also having 2 children still in school, so a foot in each camp, before we eventually decided to take our other 2 children out the following summer. So yes, looking at those initial weeks and months, where we got our support, how we got our support, how things started to fall into place, how we started to trust our own instincts on the rhythm that we needed to our lives. And also looking at developing our why, really growing more and more confident as that first year went on as to what our initial why was, and then what our why was becoming. So yes, it's very much about the response of others as well, dealing with the response of others initially, when we took our children out of school, the questions obviously about the whiteboard, and how we dealt with those. And that's pretty much the chapter. It's our story.
Thank you.
That was like a wonderful trailer, because now I want to know, where is the whiteboard and how did your why change and what is this rhythm now? Like, you just such a trailer. So yeah, you're all explaining your chapters very well, very exciting. If as you talk as well, and maybe somebody wants, Molly, you might want to summarize this at the end or touch on it as the various authors speak on how do you think your chapter allows for us to be, and future home educators, current and future, bolder, freer, and maybe louder in that decision. So it's already saying, well, my why changed, and I had this journey of faith and I trusted more. So the faith turned into more trust. But yeah, how does that relate as well? And maybe just 1 or 2 sentences on that as we go as well. So that'd be great. Thank you.
So I think I'm passing on to someone else. So I'm going to pass on to Anne Law, who I met yesterday, which was lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a kind of a natural like progression-ish. Yeah. So I'm Anne Law Jackson, and my chapter is about making room for disability, differences, disorders, all the kind of D words that we like to put out there. And I'm coming professionally as an occupational therapist, a homemaking mum of 21 years. So yes, absolutely coming of age, as Molly was saying there. And also as a wife of, my husband has multiple sclerosis and a visual impairment. So the chapter kind of goes through it, it interweaves all kinds of questions, as we all have. But it's kind of real. It's kind of raw, it's very genuine, and it's just, I hope, a chapter of hope to absolutely say, yes, you can do this, regardless of whatever your circumstances are. You know, if the will is there, if the heart is there, it is still the most precious experience that you could possibly have. So I do go into what the boys have. I have 3 children. So what our 3 boys have missed, but also what they've gained from their father, what I have missed as wife, but also what I have gained and my personal journey through that. And then as an occupational therapist that has an online support system worldwide for anybody who has sensory needs in particular, to train, to equip, to encourage, just to be able to say, look, if you want more support, we are here for you and we get you. The home ed world is, we are different to begin with. And then if you have additional needs, maybe your children are adopted, maybe they've just got a diagnosis, maybe they've just come into autism, ADHD. Yeah, there's so many DISs, so many diagnoses, or sometimes the children are just different and difficult, and there can be years before anything is recognized. So the chapter is really about hanging on in there. You know, there's also, if you want to connect, you can connect, because we want to be there for you, but also it's a phenomenal journey that you will be taken on and through. And, you know, it's just been a remarkable journey, and I've loved the journey that we have had through the tough times. And that's okay. You know, life is life. No matter how long that curveball lasts, you kind of think, oh, you get a curveball thrown every now and again. But actually, some of us are in this for the long term. For the rest of my life, you know, I will be married to my husband, and you will be parenting these children that maybe aren't the typical, and your hopes and expectations will be completely different. I remember one of the biggest things, although my boys don't have special needs or any extra needs in that way, my biggest thing home editing was I was going to miss the boys going to a prom, and that was my biggest thing. And I thought, of all the things I would miss about, like, why would I not choose to home educate because they won't go to a prom? And I was just so like, that was such a big thing for me. And then it's so funny over COVID. Well, it wasn't funny, but you know, there weren't any problems anyway, just as my 2 of my boys were graduating. So yeah, so it's there just to affirm and to validate the struggles, really, but also to give hope. So I can't remember, Heidi, if you ask anything else. Anything else.
That was delightful, and we can all see and feel your heart. Like, I went, oh my goodness, this lady's heart. Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful. And we hear of the C's of learning and education, and you know, the communication and compassion, and there's lots of C words, but you never hear about the D words, and you know, the difficulty, the disability, all of that, and all of those. I heard your soft heart and the reframe on almost that's learning in another way, just by experiencing that this is another way of learning, ? What if? That's the hope. What if this distress was another way of learning. And that means, could we look at what's happening on the planet even? Can we go meta on, like bigger on this and go out from our education and our homes to, is all the distress in the world, is it all part of looking at it differently, and can we learn from it, my goodness, instead of stress from it? So amazing method. I don't think you've realized what you've written in your books, and this is just in this little, what I'm feeling and hearing in this, few minutes. It'll be an hour by the time we finish, but when this book launches, tell me about that. Who's next? Thank you, Anne. Beautiful.
Molly, who's next? Who do you reckon?
I can't see on the screen. Alberta, are you there still? Is Alberta there?
Yep, Alberta's in here somewhere. Let me see if I can find her. Oh.
I am here. Sorry, I'm on mute.
That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Alberto Stevens. I'm sorry, I've got my video on, but it's a bit dark. I have a 1-year-old baby, so we're in a dark room to get him to sleep. I'm afraid I'm not winning at that. So I don't know if you can see me at all. So perhaps I should have my picture on, because it's not really useful, I'm afraid. So my name's Alberto Stevens. I'm a mum of 2. I have a 12-year-old and a 12-month-old, as you've just heard. I've been home educating coming up to about 4 years now. So we're relatively one of the newbies in the chapter. And when I got onto social media as a home edder, probably halfway through, 6 months into my first year, one of the first people I met online was Molly. And I'm truly grateful for that, because I think we both began to encourage each other and have just formed a beautiful friendship. And out of that, Molly's invited me to join, this wonderful profile of so many amazing home edders to write this book. So for me, it was really important to bring an experience that I had in home educating as a fairly new home educator to the book. Whilst I've really enjoyed being a home ed mum, and in fact, I feel like I've come into my own, I've sort of got a sense of purpose, a strong sense of purpose in home educating. I also felt, as a single parent, that there were difficult times, and probably I wrote out of a very difficult experience in home education in this chapter. So my experience was, in the first year, I experienced burnout for the first time. And it wasn't a long drawn out experience, but it was a significant one. And I thank God that I learned the lessons from that rather quickly. And I think, again, it's really born out of a community that I found around me and online of other home ed mums. So it felt important to me to bring that message to other mums who may be experiencing it, to say, hey, look, you need to look after yourself as you're looking after your children. As much as children are born persons, that indicates that we too are persons, and the same food, the same nourishment that we give our children, we ought also to give to ourselves. We ought to model that. We can't pour from an empty cup. So my chapter essentially is about how do, talking to parents about how to ensure that as they feed their children all the lovely, delightful things that make them whole people, that we are also giving ourselves, serving a plate for ourselves. So I've got a little chatterbox in the background here, and that we're serving a plate for ourselves, spiritually, mentally. And I know that there's somebody else in the book who has done a chapter about doing that physically. So I talk about, the intellectual aspect. I talk about the spiritual aspects. I talk about mothers, drawing from Charlotte Mason's page, that mothers ought to make time to play, and how you do that is entirely up to you. So I look at different expressions of how we can play, or how we can do mother nurture, mother culture. and draw lots of references. I think these are the ways I fed myself and continue to feed myself. It's not a one-stop shop. It's an ongoing process. And faith is a key part of that. So that's what my chapter's been about. And as I wrote that chapter, it continued to serve me and still does. I feel like it's a life-giving expression of what home education can be like for parents. Yeah.
Thank you, Alberta. It's a lovely chapter. Thank you. The little boy sounds so sweet.
How delightful is he?
He's fascinated by all your videos.
Yeah, how delightful is he? Thank you so much for bringing him along. And that's another way of even nurturing yourself, is not to say no to showing up at, the opportunity to share with your fellow authors. That's a way of nurturing yourself. So no matter what, even as a mother, of a young one, you're still showing up and you're being the change. So he's talking too. It was delightful. And how calm you are, and not saying, be quiet, mummy's talking or anything. We just accept it all as home educators, no matter what age they are. So I love this community. And that some of you have just met each other like this week, face to face. So like even on Zoom is lovely. So who's next, Molly?
I wonder, I've just noticed Kat is here. So maybe Kat and then Philippa, because if Philippa could kind of like conclude us, then she can then talk about the website and the launch. So maybe Kat, I think I excitedly saw Kat Patrick here. Is that right?
That's there, but I think, do you want to kind of put your camera on, Kat? Are you with us? And unmute.
I am here, yes.
I can't see her. Can you see her?
I've got her here. I can put a spotlight on. I can't do it until we've actually got a picture on there. So there she is. Okay.
Kat is an honorary Brit. She actually helped one of my sons, my oldest son, through his GCSE. So that's how I got to know her. As probably most of got to know and love her is through her Dream Inspires courses. And because she lived in your husband is British, isn't he? And she lived in Oxford for quite a few years. So she is here as an honorary Brit, even though she has that wonderful American accent. So she's kind of like the link between all that good stuff that has come over to us from the States that we have benefited from, and what we're doing. So thank you.
Hold on, I'm trying to do this outside because my dogs might bark. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Kat. Look forward to hearing.
Okay, I'm not sure. Hold on, I'm not sure this is working very well. Okay, the dogs may bark, just pretend like they're babies and really cute, okay? So I just discovered that this was happening, and I had an 8-hour drive yesterday from a dog show, and it's early in the morning for me, and so I'm not really dressed up for this. But I was really glad to see on our group chat that this was happening at a time that I was awake, so I popped on to mainly just listen, not realizing that I would be asked to talk. I wrote a chapter about delight-directed learning, which is something that's my absolute passion about education. One of the things that's really important to me, and as a home educator now of about 22 years, I have 4 children, 2 are now at university, and I have 2 still in secondary, is that I've had this crisis a number of times, mainly when my children are about 12 or 13, 14, particularly when they get to about 15. And I think, I haven't taught them everything I want to teach them. There's so much more I want to tell them about. And when my eldest was 17, it was like, I've only got 1 more year with her, and I don't want it to do this and this and this and this, and I don't have time. And ultimately, I think in a way, it's quite exciting to realize that we will never teach them all that we would love for them to learn. But it is very freeing to realize that even though we can't do that, we can teach them to learn and to love to learn. And then they'll just continue on their journey after they leave home. And if you think about your own journey as a mom, home educating, you've probably learned so much more with your own children than probably you remember from school yourself. So we're doing French history right now. I'm learning so much about French history I never knew. So I love to learn. I'm not 18 anymore, and yet I'm still learning all the time. And so just trying to instill in my children that love and delight of learning has become the thing that I hold on to more than check boxes of things. And so my chapter really is about, particularly when you get into secondary and you start getting really anxious about things like exams and careers and directions the kids are going. And you have a tendency to strip all the learning away just for those practical subjects and those practical pathways. And my chapter is all about, hey, it's way more about those practical things, those end results that happen when they're 14 or 15 or 16. And they might take the exam and then just jettison all that information. And so it's not saying don't do exams, but perhaps choose exams for important reasons for you, but don't try to recreate the school version, which is 10 or 12 GCSEs, which they do to fill a timetable. Let's just be frank about that. They're not doing it because it's the best for the children. So what's best for your child might be a couple of GCSEs one year, a couple of GCSEs another year. But in the meantime, what are you doing with the rest of your time? So then you can do the things that delight the children, whether it's nature studies still, or you really love history, and you don't necessarily have to do the history GCSE, which is a very bloated curriculum anyway. So instead of doing the exam, I told you the dogs will bark. Anyway, instead of doing the GCSE because you think your child loves to learn, why not actually do the history study because they love it, and maybe focus instead on just the maths, the English, and the science. So that's kind of what the chapter is about, is trying to free people from the tethers of the UK system that we're all bombarded with. And the other thing is, I feel like you do need to be a bit bold in order to step off the well-trodden path and go meander your own way with your own family and make it very unique. I can't believe I said very unique. Make it unique for your children and your family and your situation and the things that you guys love. So that's the chapter in a nutshell. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Kat.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Kat. And your dogs were pretty cute and definitely well behaved. So that was terrific. You know what? You definitely need to re-listen to this later. The little nuggets that you can put in a post, like your little quotes that you've all said, they can be part of your marketing strategy for sure. Yeah, there's lots of great little nuggets in there. Another way to learn was the love and light of learning. That's definitely another way. But yes, you had some really good quotes, the unique way, and trusting that process. So who's next? Thank you so much, Kat.
I think Philippa. So Philippa could, if you would be able to say about your chapter, but then also go on to say about our marketing strategy and the website and launch team and everything you've been working really hard on.
I'll give it a shot, Molly. So I'm Philippa, and I wrote the chapter on second generation home education because I was home educated all the way through myself by my parents. I'm the oldest of 9 children, so they really had their hands full. Now I think about it as a home ed mum myself. There was no internet. There was no UK-based home ed stuff. We had the home service and EO, which we tapped into from now and again. But yeah, we were they were, yeah. Hats off to all the people who were home educating in the 80s and 90s. So my chapter is just basically about that, looking at the heritage I've received. And I've often, when I started, so my oldest is 15, my youngest is 7. I've got 4 children with my husband, Andy. And when I first started, I wondered what my journey would look like compared to my parents' journey, bearing in mind that although I hadn't ever home educated anyone myself, I had that heritage behind me. And it's been really interesting as a mum to talk to other home educating mums. Now we're in this landscape of having the internet and so many choices with curriculum, and it's just so very different, as I said, from years ago. To see what if anything set me apart and other second generation home educators from everyone else who's doing this for the first time and making the decision to take kids out of school or not to put them into schooling, and all the decisions that you guys are having, I didn't have in the same way. And I thought, well, what if anything has given me an advantage, and what just so the chapter really delved into the differences, if any. And when I was putting pen to paper after Molly asked me to write the chapter on second generation home educating, I thought, well, what is different? And I put it down to 3 things in the end. I've got the culture of home educating already, so I'm familiar with groups, and a lot of it's very instinctive, just because I've been brought up in the home ed community. And then another thing that I could pinpoint was comprehension of the different styles. So a lot of the modern, I say modern, but philosophy of education, my parents didn't really talk about much. Whereas I wanted to know about the Charlotte Mason and the unschooling and unit studies and all the different methods. It was totally new to me, this idea. And I thought, well, how did my parents cope? And I think they just instinctively trailblazed through things because it's due to a lack of materials, generally speaking. And so I was coming to it quite new, different philosophies new as a mum, but a lot of it had already been, I'd seen in practice. Like looking back, we had a very freestyle home education, but we were surrounded by books. And we could read as much as we liked. It was very delight-led learning. We did bits of maths, bits of English, and we weren't unschoolers, but it was just a lot of the, like, for instance, Charlotte Mason atmosphere of education and the science of relation, all those terms that get bandied about were already in practice as I grew up. So there was already an instinctive comprehension of different ideas, which, although I was looking at it newly as a mum, I'd already actually, without realising it, had experienced. And then I think the biggest thing that made my perspective, let's say, different was the confidence. And so don't get me wrong, I have worried about homeschooling choices on so many different points in my journey, and worried that I've not done enough or I've done too much, or, what about GCSEs? And it's not that I haven't had those wobbles and wibbles and wanted to put my kids in school because school's going to do it better than me type of thing. But it's an innate confidence knowing that I was home educated and I haven't grown 2 heads. Neither did any of my siblings. So I know it works. So, I know I can be a member of society, and I'm not lacking anything through being home educated, so I can be fairly sure my kids aren't going to be wrecked by home education, which, let's face it, is a genuine worry. So those were the 3 things that I was able to just, I don't know, work out. It could make us different as second generation home educators, and yeah. Please don't get me wrong, I do have lots of wobbles and lots of the things that every home educator is going through. I'm still going through. I'm still having those those days where it's incredibly difficult and I just want to throw the towel in. So it's not like being a second generation home educator means that I have the answers. It's just more the like I said, that cultural comprehension stroke confidence at the end of the day that it's all going to be okay. And I really do put that down to the pioneer home educators that set the scene for us to come to our heyday now, as Molly said, and also learning. I've learned a lot from watching other home educators in my generation start for the first time, and what you're all going through, the things you're wrestling with, and home education is only as strong as the community that we find ourselves in, and so that kind of mix of ideas, that meld of everything, really is what is the differences of what make us strong, because they help us think about things from a different perspective. So it's been really lovely getting to know the homeschool community, as you know, the really fresh newbies, the people who've been doing it for 20 years, and then the people who are doing it having been home educated for all or some of their homeschool and their school years, and now doing it with their own children. It's really exciting. I'm excited to see where we go from here and how we build on the shoulders of giants, basically, those people who are trailblazing, just as you were trailblazing in your own families, making those decisions. It's exciting to see what we can build on for our children and the next generation. So that's what my chapter's about. And then moving on to the book as a whole. We have today launched the website, which is a holding website. So I think I put it up on the chat. Tell me if you can't see it, and I'll put it up again. So we've got the website up, which has a picture of the book, and it's got a list of the authors with a little bit of their bio about who they are. And we are going to be launching our proper social media campaign, as it were, at the beginning of July, running into August. So we're just waiting for the publisher to let us know that the pre-order feature is available, and then we'll pop it up on the website. And people can start to pre-order the book from there. And we will also, so do check on that website in a couple of weeks' time, or it might be before then, but there will also be a link for a book launch group. So if you want to help spread the word, there'll be a Google form on there which you can fill in. It's open to anyone who's pre-ordered the book, or will be once we've got those features up. And you can join. We're going to have a little Facebook group, and we'll be putting up posts for you to post on social media, Instagram. And in conjunction with that, we are going to be putting up a blog post or two a week in those 8 weeks, I think it is, leading up to the publication of the book at the beginning of September. And each of those posts will delve into a little bit more, like we've been doing today, a little bit of the story of each of the authors of each of the chapters, and why we wrote our particular chapter. So that's going to go up at the same time as social media quotes from the book. And so if you want to join in and help, if you see those, if you're not part of the book launch team, if you see one of those on your social media, please like, share, tell everyone about it. Do feel free to join the book launch as soon as that feature's available, and you can help us share everything and buy the book. So I think that's it. Tell me if I've missed something out, Molly, but
that's fantastic. We thought we might, towards the end, thank you so much, Heidi. That would be just wonderful to have an online book launch event with you in Australia. That would just be amazing. I think our publishers they have outlets in the States and in Australia, so that would just be amazing. Thank you so much. And I think we're really hoping, this is sort of just for it to come out more and more, in the fact that it's been sort of the 16 of us, but actually it's endeavours work better where they're shared, aren't they? And actually it's a community project, and the more of us that can be involved and kind of in a sense own it, and because it's there to encourage people and to encourage other home educators, and so that would just be fantastic. And so we're wanting, with the pre-launch website and with the Facebook page, obviously we will have little things that you can share and images to share and posts and things, but also we hope there'll be quite a sense of community on it as well. We did wonder, I don't know how this would work in Australia, Heidi. It's a bit of a long way, whether we could have when the actual launch day is, which would be sometime early September, whether we could have local tea parties just to celebrate the launch, so actually face to face, and get whoever is around different locations. So we'll wait and see what happens, but we are very much hoping it'll be a really fun kind of community cohesive 2 months.
Well, a cup of tea time's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What time is it there? You might be early hours of the morning. No, it'll be fantastic. We'll work it out, and I'll liaise with Philippa or you, Molly, or Ruth. So we'll work it out. I'll be delighted. So just in the last few minutes, actually, Ruth, did you want to say anything? And I also wanted to ask the listeners if they wanted to ask something.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to, I think there's just one thing, there's a number of chapters where the authors couldn't be here today. So I was just going to run through one or two of the chapters that you haven't heard about, just so that you know what else is in the book. So there is a chapter on the early years, building good foundations. That's Jessica Girard. So obviously that's focused on very much primary, starting out right from the beginning. Juliet is actually in the other kind of conference session today, so she was planning to come in, but then things had to change. She's doing some socially speaking, understanding the home educated child as a social being, so a bit about kind of the socialization kind of side of things. That's her chapter. And we've also got Helen Brunning wrote a chapter called Help My Grandchildren Are Being Home Educated, Home Ed and the Wider Family. So that'll be interesting. That's just a take on the next generation again, Philippa, what you were saying. So that's interesting as well. And then we've got a collaborative chapter where it's kind of making it work, overcoming challenges, complications and curveballs. So we've got kind of 3 different contributors on there, which includes, I think, single parenting and just some of the real kind of difficulties where people have still managed to make it work by God's grace, I think. But so that'd be an interesting chapter as well. And also there's one by Catherine Shelton. I think she's a nutritionist. So she's looking at self-care matters, 10 ways to look after yourself and to avoid burnout. I think somebody mentioned about burnout, didn't they? So that is an interesting one as well. There's also 1 or 2 appendixes. So we've got educational philosophies. We very often talk when we're writing local education authority reports that you include an educational philosophy, why you're doing it, what matters to you. So there is some information on there about different philosophies, and that's quite helpful. The other appendix is advice on running a home education support group. So if you haven't got like a group in your area, Juliet's pieced together some very practical advice so that you can actually begin to build that support around, like you were saying, Philippa, which is quite important. And I think as well, there's an interesting chapter which is about the political view, which I think Randall Hardy's writing that one, and he probably wrote it, but he may have to rewrite it in the light of the last 2 weeks. So I don't know how that fits in, but obviously some comment on Randall, who is absolutely amazing at picking up, what's happening, not just in this country, but globally as well, in terms of home ed and family issues, and how the governments are kind of restricting or bringing in things that he's got an eye on the globe as well as an eye in this country, so he's amazing. So there's a chapter there as well. So and I think, Mary, you've got a conclusion as well, haven't you, at the end? So that's all the other bits that you haven't heard about today, but a real mix and something for everybody. So yeah,
definitely is. There definitely is, and I can hear and see already volume 2 coming along as well. So definitely. Molly, did you have a sentence to say, or Juliet, did you want to say anything before we finish up?
Sorry, well, I have no idea what you've been talking, where you've gone with it. So only if
We've
anyone's
mentioned
got
your
any more
chapter.
questions. Yeah.
I've heard a real trailer about the book. So, but maybe in a nutshell, the social side you were talking about in your book.
Yeah, well,
your
the
chapter,
home
sorry.
educated child is a social being, and I think let's just say they are social beings and leave it at that.
Very good. Look at us here. We could talk all night. Hey, we're very social. All right. Thank you. It's been an honor listening to all of you. Thank you to all the visitors, the guests to come along and listen. I'm definitely want it now. So want to read it already. So I'm looking forward to it coming. On the website, can we subscribe to updates? Is there something, a pop-up we can subscribe to updates so we're notified when the pre-launch is, or the
There
pre-orders?
isn't at the moment. We could work out how to fit that in, I'm sure, but
Have you got a
definitely
pre-order
check back in a few days, and I'm sure there'll be updates on pre-order, etc. And of course, if you're on the pre-order team, the launch team, you will be getting a copy of the book on a PDF to read during the launch period as well. So, you know, if you pre-order that book and then join the launch team, you'll get that sneak peek into all the good stuff that's in there.
Very good. Lots of great quotes here tonight, Juliet. When you listen to it again, lots of great quotes that can be used with the marketing. So
Great.
You've all done wonderfully. Thank you very much